Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. A dramatic montage of medieval battles, secretive meetings, and ancient manuscripts. The camera zooms in on a Templar knight, his white mantle emblazoned with a red cross, standing before a burning castle. A solemn voiceover begins. The Knights Templar, warriors, bankers, and keepers of secrets. But what mysteries did they leave behind? The Templars were one of the most powerful and enigmatic military orders in history. Founded in 1119, they began as a small group of knights sworn to protect Christian pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land. But over the next 2 centuries, they transformed into something far greater, an elite force of warrior monks, a financial empire controlling vast wealth, and according to some, the keepers of secrets that could shake the world. At their peak, the Templars had influence stretching across Europe and the Middle East. They built formidable fortresses, developed one of the earliest banking systems, and held favor with kings and popes. But then, in 1307, everything changed. On Friday, the Iaugar, 13th of October, King Philip IV of France, deeply in debt to the Templars, ordered their mass arrest. Under torture, many confessed to heresy, blasphemy, and forbidden rituals. Their leader, Grandmaster Jacques de Molay, was burned at the stake in 1314, and within a few years the order was officially dissolved. Yet their story doesn't end there. Whispers of hidden treasures, lost relics, and forbidden knowledge have surrounded the Templars for centuries. Did they smuggle their vast wealth out of France before their downfall? Could they have hidden sacred artifacts like the Holy Grail or the Ark of the Covenant? And what of their secret teachings? Were they guardians of ancient wisdom that the Church sought to destroy? In this video, we'll uncover the truth behind the Knights Templar. We'll explore their real history, the theories surrounding their lost wealth, and the mysteries that still captivate the world today. Prepare to enter a world of intrigue, betrayal, and secrets that refuse to stay buried. The camera shifts to a vast desert landscape, with Jerusalem's ancient walls in the background. A group of weary travelers moves cautiously along a winding path, scanning the horizon for danger. Suddenly, shadows emerge, bandits. But just as the attack seems imminent, armored knights appear, swords drawn, their white mantles marked with a crimson cross. The attackers flee. In the wake of the First Crusade, the Christian conquest of Jerusalem in 1099 marked the beginning of a new and uncertain era in the Holy Land. While the Crusaders had seized the city from Muslim control, the surrounding region remained fraught with danger. The roads leading to Jerusalem, as well as other sacred sites such as Bethlehem and Nazareth, were often lawless, making it perilous for Christian pilgrims traveling from Europe. These travelers, many of whom were ordinary men and women rather than soldiers, embarked on arduous journeys across vast distances, driven by their faith to visit places they believed held deep spiritual significance. However, their devotion made them vulnerable. Along these treacherous routes, dangers lurked at every turn. Bandits roamed the countryside, seeking to ambush unarmed travelers and plunder their belongings. Hostile factions, including remnants of Muslim forces that had suffered defeat during the Crusades, engaged in guerrilla-style attacks against Christian settlements and travelers alike. Even local warlords and opportunistic mercenaries saw an easy target in these devout but defenseless visitors. Without a structured military presence to safeguard them, many pilgrims were robbed, kidnapped for ransom, or worse, killed before they ever reached Jerusalem. Amidst this chaos, a knight named Hugh de Payens, along with a small band of fellow warriors, recognized the desperate need for protection and took it upon themselves to defend these travelers. In 1119, they swore a solemn oath of service, vowing to safeguard Christian pilgrims and uphold the security of the roads leading to the Holy Land's most sacred destinations. This group would soon become known as the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and the Temple of Solomon, later shortened to the Knights Templar. Their mission was not just one of military duty, but also of profound spiritual conviction. Unlike typical mercenaries, these knights combined martial discipline with religious devotion, pledging themselves to a life of poverty, chastity, and obedience. Unlike ordinary knights who sought personal glory or wealth, the Templars dedicated their swords to what they believed was a divine cause, seeing themselves as warrior monks fighting not for earthly rewards, but for the greater good of Christendom. Their base of operations was established on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, from which they derived their name. This brotherhood of warrior monks called themselves the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, later known as the Knights Templar. Their headquarters? The holiest of locations, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which was believed to stand on the ruins of the legendary Temple of Solomon. This sacred connection gave the Templars a sense of divine purpose, and their name would forever be tied to the mysteries of the ancient temple. King Baldwin II of Jerusalem, recognizing the potential of Judeans and his knights, saw them as a crucial asset to the fragile Christian kingdom in the Holy Land. The First Crusade had established several Christian-controlled territories, but these were still vulnerable to attacks from Muslim forces eager to reclaim lost land. The roads leading to and from Jerusalem were still fraught with danger, and Baldwin knew that the presence of a dedicated group of warrior monks could help secure his realm. Seeing their commitment to protecting pilgrims and maintaining order, he officially endorsed them, granting them a headquarters within a wing of his palace on the Temple Mount, believed to be the site of the ancient Temple of Solomon. This symbolic location would later shape the group's identity and give rise to their enduring name, the Knights Templar. Despite this royal support, the early years of the order were far from luxurious. Unlike the powerful and wealthy organization they would later become, the First Templars were a small, modest brotherhood bound by strict religious vows. They followed the monastic ideals of poverty, chastity, and obedience, much like traditional monks. Every knight who joined the order swore to renounce personal wealth, land, and worldly possessions. They could not own property outside of what was collectively held by the order, and their food, clothing, and weapons were provided by the community. This communal way of life reinforced their sense of brotherhood and devotion to their cause. Their daily existence was defined by discipline and humility. Their attire consisted of simple tunics, plain white robes with a red cross only added later as a distinguishing symbol. Unlike the lavishly decorated armor of secular knights, their weapons and gear were practical, chosen for function rather than display. Even their horses and war equipment were communal, meaning that no knight could claim superior status through personal wealth or possessions. The rule of the Templars, established later with guidance from Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, formalized these principles, ensuring that every knight remained dedicated to service rather than personal ambition. The ethos of poverty also extended to their diet and living conditions. Unlike the feasts enjoyed by noble warriors in European courts, the Templars ate simple meals, often consisting of bread, vegetables, and water. They adhered to strict fasting rules and were expected to maintain a life of prayer and devotion, alongside their military duties. Even when they were not in battle, they spent their days in training, maintaining their weapons, and performing religious observances. Despite their austere lifestyle, their reputation for discipline and dedication began to attract more followers. As news of their bravery and commitment spread, European knights eager to fight for a holy cause sought to join their ranks. Wealthy patrons and rulers also began to donate land, money, and supplies to the order, impressed by their selflessness and military skill. Over time, these contributions would transform the Templars from a small band of humble warriors into one of the most formidable and influential organizations of the medieval world. But in these early years, their power and influence were yet to come. For now, they remained a small, devout brotherhood, living in obedience to their vows and carrying out their mission with unwavering faith. Their simplicity and dedication, rather than material wealth or numbers, were what made them stand out, and what laid the foundation for their extraordinary rise. Their growing reputation caught the attention of one of the most powerful figures in the Catholic Church, Bernard of Clairvaux, a highly influential abbot and theologian. Bernard became the Templars' greatest advocate, seeing them as the perfect fusion of warrior and monk, a divine army fighting in the name of Christ. He wrote passionately about their cause, describing them as fearless knights of God who fought not for personal glory but for righteousness. His influence reached the highest levels of power, and in 1129, the Templars received official recognition from the Catholic Church at the Council of Troyes. This was a turning point. No longer just a small band of knights, they became a fully sanctioned military order with the blessing of the Pope. They were given special privileges, including exemption from local laws and the ability to operate independently of kings and bishops. With the backing of the church and the promise of divine reward, the Templars began to grow rapidly. Knights and noblemen from across Europe joined their ranks, donating land, wealth, and resources to the order. What had started as a small group of men guarding pilgrims was now evolving into something much greater, an unstoppable force, both on the battlefield and behind the scenes of medieval power. But with their rising influence came enemies, and their story would take a dramatic turn in the years to come. A medieval market bustling with traders, knights, and noblemen. A weary pilgrim hands a document to a Templar knight who inspects it before nodding and leading him into a fortress. The camera zooms in on the document. A promissory note. A narrator begins. The Knights Templar were warriors, but their most powerful weapon wasn't the sword. It was their mastery of finance. Over time, they evolved from protectors of pilgrims to the most influential bankers in medieval Europe. The Knights Templar, originally founded as a military order, gradually expanded their role beyond protecting pilgrims and became pioneers in medieval finance. Their innovative financial system emerged out of necessity. The roads to the Holy Land were treacherous, filled with bandits and opportunists who targeted travelers carrying gold, silver, or other valuables. This constant threat made long-distance travel extremely risky for merchants, nobles, and devout pilgrims alike. Recognizing this problem, the Templars devised a groundbreaking solution, a system that functioned much like modern banking. Pilgrims could visit a Templar commandery in their home country, where they would deposit their gold or other assets with the order. In exchange, they received a carefully documented and coded letter, which essentially functioned as a medieval check. This document contained encrypted instructions that only the Templars could decipher, ensuring that it could not be easily forged or misused. Once the traveler arrived in the Holy Land, they could present their document at a designated Templar outpost, such as in Jerusalem, Acre, or Antioch, and withdraw the equivalent value in local currency, minus a modest service fee. This eliminated the need to carry large amounts of physical wealth on the journey, reducing the likelihood of theft and allowing pilgrims to travel with greater security and peace of mind. The system was revolutionary for its time. Unlike the traditional method of transporting wealth across dangerous territories, the Templars' financial network allowed for secure and efficient transactions across vast distances. It was an early form of credit banking, where the actual transfer of money happened within the Templar organization rather than through physical exchange. This model provided both liquidity and safety, helping to facilitate commerce and long-distance travel in a way that had never been seen before in Europe. Beyond individual travelers, European nobles and rulers also took advantage of the Templars' financial services. Kings, lords, and wealthy landowners could deposit large sums with the Templars, using them as a secure vault to store and transfer wealth. In some cases, entire royal treasuries were entrusted to the order. The English King Henry III, for example, stored large amounts of royal funds with the Templars in the 13th century, knowing that their fortified commanderies offered greater security than his own treasury. This financial expertise eventually led the Templars to engage in lending and investment activities. Wealthy patrons often borrowed money from the order to finance military campaigns, land purchases, or infrastructure projects, paying back their debts with interest, a practice that the Church officially condemned but often overlooked when conducted through religious institutions like the Templars. As their financial power grew, the Templars became the trusted financiers of Europe, managing vast sums of money and conducting transactions across different regions. Their system laid the groundwork for the modern concepts of banking, credit, and financial security. Though they were originally warriors sworn to poverty, their innovative economic model transformed them into one of the most influential organizations of the medieval world, ultimately contributing to both their extraordinary success and their eventual downfall. The Templars' financial empire extended far beyond simply safeguarding the wealth of pilgrims. Over time, their reputation for security, efficiency, and reliability made them the most trusted financial institution in medieval Europe, attracting the attention of kings, nobles, and even the Pope himself. Their role in banking evolved naturally from their vast network of commanderies strategically positioned across Europe and the Holy Land. These fortified strongholds not only housed the knights and provided logistical support for their military efforts, but also functioned as financial centers where assets were stored, transactions were conducted, and loans were issued. Royal and noble trust in the Templars' banking system. As their influence grew, European monarchs and nobility increasingly turned to the Templars for financial management. Unlike secular banks, which were often subject to local laws and vulnerable to political shifts, the Templars were a religious order and operated under the direct authority of the Pope. This unique status meant they were beyond the reach of most kings and governments, making them one of the safest institutions for storing wealth. For many rulers, entrusting the Templars with their fortunes was not just a matter of security, but also a matter of practicality. The order's vast network allowed for the safe transfer of funds across great distances, making it easier for monarchs to finance wars, pay mercenaries, or fund major infrastructure projects. English King Henry III, for instance, frequently used the Templars as treasurers, depositing large sums with them and entrusting them with financial transactions on behalf of the crown. Similarly, the French monarchy relied on the Templars to store royal wealth and manage loans, particularly during times of economic strain or military campaigns. Loans and credit. The Templars as medieval lenders. One of the most controversial aspects of the Templars' financial operations was their involvement in lending money, an activity that closely resembled modern banking. Since the Catholic Church officially forbade usury, charging interest on loans, money lending was traditionally associated with Jewish financiers or other groups operating outside the Church's strict financial regulations. However, the Templars, as a religious order, found ways to circumvent this prohibition. Instead of charging direct interest, the Templars structured their loans in a way that disguised the interest as service fees or required collateral in land or other valuable assets. For example, a noble seeking funds for a military campaign could pledge his estates to the Templars in exchange for financial support. If he failed to repay the loan, the order would assume ownership of the land. This arrangement allowed the Templars to accumulate vast estates across Europe, significantly expanding their wealth and influence. Even the Pope sought the Templars' financial services. The papacy often needed large sums of money to fund the Crusades, maintain church infrastructure, and conduct diplomatic efforts. The Templars not only managed the Vatican's finances, in some cases, but also facilitated money transfers between the Pope and distant regions, ensuring that church funds could be accessed where and when they were needed. The Templars as financial intermediaries. Between monarchs beyond loans and deposits, the Templars played a crucial role as intermediaries in financial transactions between European monarchs. Since medieval Europe lacked a centralized banking system, transferring large sums of money between kingdoms was a complicated and risky endeavor. The Templars provided a solution by acting as trusted mediators, ensuring that payments were securely delivered from one ruler to another. For instance, when King John of England was forced to pay large sums to the Pope to avoid excommunication, the Templars managed the transaction, collecting and delivering the required funds. Similarly, during international conflicts, kings often relied on the Templars to handle ransom payments for captured nobles or to facilitate negotiations involving large financial exchanges. The Templars' financial power and their downfall. Templars' financial dominance made them indispensable to Europe's rulers, but it also sowed the seeds of their eventual downfall. By the early 14th century, their immense wealth, independence from secular authorities, and influence over Europe's financial landscape made them powerful enough to rival kings. Philip V of France, deeply in debt to the Templars and desperate for new sources of revenue, saw the order as both a financial threat and an opportunity. On Friday, October 13, 1307, Philip orchestrated a mass arrest of the Templars in France, accusing them of heresy, corruption, and other fabricated charges. Under pressure from the French king, Pope Clement V disbanded the order in 1312, seizing their assets and redistributing much of their wealth to other organizations, particularly the Hospitallers. Though the Templars were ultimately destroyed, their financial innovations left a lasting legacy. The methods they pioneered, secure deposits, letters of credit, large-scale money transfers, and structured lending, formed the foundation of modern banking. Their influence on medieval finance was so profound that many of their practices were later adopted by the banking families of the Renaissance, shaping the economic systems of Europe for centuries to come. With their wealth growing, the Templars expanded their network, establishing a vast system of castles, fortresses, and commanderies across Europe and the Holy Land. These weren't just military outposts. They functioned as administrative centers, treasuries, and financial hubs. By the 13th century, the Templars controlled hundreds of properties from England to Jerusalem, reinforcing their grip on trade, commerce, and political influence. European monarchs became increasingly dependent on them. The kings of France, England, and Aragon borrowed money from the Templars to fund wars and build infrastructure. The Templars even held vast tracts of land, rivaling some of the wealthiest noble families. Their financial expertise made them indispensable, but it also made them dangerous. As their influence grew, so did resentment among the powerful. Some rulers saw them not as allies, but as a threat, an autonomous force with immense wealth, an independent army, and no allegiance to any one king. By the early 14th century, their power had reached its peak, but so had the envy and fear of those who owed them money. One ruler in particular, King Philip IV of France, would set the wheels in motion for the Templars' downfall. Their immense fortune, which had once made them untouchable, would soon become their greatest curse. The grand halls of a medieval castle, dimly lit by flickering torches. King Philip IV of France sits at a long table, deep in thought. Before him, a parchment detailing his kingdom's debt to the Knights Templar. His expression hardens. The camera shifts to the Templars' headquarters in Paris. Silent, unaware of the storm about to descend upon them. A narrator begins. Philip IV of France, known as Philip the Fair, was a ruler whose ambitions extended beyond military conquests. He sought complete control over his kingdom's financial and political affairs. By the early 14th century, his aggressive taxation policies and costly wars, particularly against England and Flanders, had left France in financial turmoil. The Knights Templar, with their vast wealth, extensive land holdings, and independent banking network, became an irresistible target for a king desperate for funds. But Philip's motives went beyond mere greed. The Templars represented a power structure outside his control, one that answered only to the Pope and possessed an almost untouchable status across Christendom. A calculated attack, Philip's strategy. Against the Templars, Philip knew that a direct attack on the Templars solely for their wealth would be met with resistance from the Church and other European monarchs. The order was widely regarded as a pious and honorable institution, and any move against them would need to be carefully orchestrated. Instead of openly seizing their assets, Philip devised a plan to destroy the Templars' reputation first. The king had already demonstrated his willingness to challenge religious authority when he clashed with Pope Boniface VIII over taxation and the power of the monarchy. Now, he would use his influence over the new Pope, Clement V, to orchestrate the downfall of the Templars. Philip's first step was to plant seeds of doubt about the order's integrity, alleging that they had strayed from their original mission and harbored heretical beliefs. These accusations included blasphemy, idol worship, immoral secret rituals, and even alliances with Muslim forces, charges designed to turn both the church and the public against them. Friday the 13th, the sudden mass arrest on October 13th, 1307. Date that would forever be linked with superstition, Philip put his plan into motion. At dawn, his agents, operating under sealed orders, carried out mass arrests of Templars across France. Grand Master Jacques de Molay and hundreds of knights were taken into custody, their properties seized, and their treasury confiscated. The Templars, caught completely off guard, found themselves facing a systematic and ruthless inquisition. Under brutal torture by the French Inquisition, many knights confessed to the charges against them, though these confessions were later retracted. Some admitted under duress to spitting on the cross, engaging in secret initiation rites, and other fabricated offenses. These coerced testimonies gave Philip the justification he needed to press the Pope for official action against the order. Papal complicity and the trial of the Templars, Pope Clement V, though initially hesitant, ultimately capitulated to Philip's pressure. The Pope had little choice. Philip had already forced the papacy to relocate from Rome to Avignon, effectively bringing it under French influence. Fearing further conflict with the king, Clement issued a series of papal bulls ordering the arrest of Templars across Europe and the seizure of their assets. However, the Templar trials did not proceed uniformly across Christendom. While Philip's campaign in France resulted in widespread arrests and executions, other European rulers were less eager to comply. In England, King Edward II initially resisted Philip's demands, but eventually yielded to papal pressure. In Portugal and Spain, Templar knights were either absorbed into other military orders or rebranded under different names, ensuring their survival in some form. The fall of the last Templars. After years of imprisonment, Jacques de Molay and other high-ranking Templars were sentenced to life in prison. However, when de Molay publicly retracted his forced confession in 1314, Philip saw this as a direct challenge to his authority. On March 18, 1314, de Molay and fellow Templar leader Geoffrey de Charny were burned at the stake in Paris. According to legend, as the flames consumed him, de Molay cursed both the king and the pope, prophesying that they would soon stand before God's judgment. Remarkably, within a year, both Philip and Clement were dead, Philip from a sudden illness and Clement possibly from poisoning. The aftermath and the enduring mystery, the destruction of the Templars left a lasting impact on Europe, reshaping the political and financial landscape. The order's vast wealth, which Philip had sought so desperately, largely disappeared. Some of it was absorbed by the Knights Hospitaller, while much of it remains unaccounted for, fueling centuries of speculation about hidden Templar treasure. Despite their downfall, the legend of the Templars persisted. Their abrupt and dramatic demise, combined with their supposed lost wealth and secretive nature, gave rise to countless conspiracy theories. From the Freemasons to the Holy Grail, the Templars continue to capture the imagination, their story, a blend of history, myth, and intrigue that endures to this day. At dawn on Friday, October 13, 1307, under Philip's secret orders, soldiers stormed Templar commanderies across France. Hundreds of knights were arrested in a single day. Those who resisted were cut down. Their charge: heresy, blasphemy, and devil worship. The accusations were shocking: spitting on the cross, denying Christ, worshipping idols, and engaging in forbidden rituals. These were not random allegations. They were carefully crafted to ensure that the Church would turn against the Templars, severing their divine protection. King Philip's plan worked. Many knights were thrown into dark, rat-infested dungeons where they faced brutal torture. Strappado, being suspended by the wrists until their joints dislocated, was common. Others endured fire, the rack, or starvation. After days of agony, forced confessions were extracted. Many admitted to crimes they had never committed, just to end their suffering. Some even agreed that they had engaged in strange, secretive ceremonies, though whether these admissions were true or a product of torment remains unknown. With their confessions in hand, Philip pressed Pope Clement V to act. The Pope, hesitant at first, eventually dissolved the order in 1312, fearing conflict with the French king. Across Europe, the Templars' wealth and lands were seized. Some members were absorbed into other religious orders, while others fled into hiding. But for those in Philip's grasp, there was no escape. In 1314, the last Grand Master of the Templars, Jacques de Molay, was sentenced to burn at the stake. He was dragged through the streets of Paris, bound and set upon a pyre. As the flames rose around him, he did something unexpected. He did not beg for mercy. Instead, he turned toward the crowd and, in his final breath, uttered a curse. Pope Clement, King Philip, within a year I summon you both to the judgment of God. Legend holds that his words came true. Pope Clement V died a month later, reportedly of illness. King Philip IV followed within the year, suffering a sudden stroke while on a hunt. The royal line of France soon crumbled, sparking the chaos of the 100 Years' War. Some saw these events as coincidence. Others believed that the curse of the last Templar Grand Master had sealed their fate. With de Molay's death, the Order of the Knights Templar ceased to exist, or so it seemed. But their story wasn't over. Rumors of hidden treasures, surviving Templars, and secret knowledge began to spread. What had truly become of the Templar wealth? And had the Order really vanished, or had it simply gone underground, waiting for the right moment to resurface? A flickering candle illuminates an ancient map spread across a wooden table. A gloved hand traces mysterious symbols, marking locations in Scotland, Portugal, and beyond. The camera zooms in on a weathered Templar seal. A narrator begins. The fall of the Knights Templar was swift, but one question remains unanswered to this day. What happened to their vast wealth? King Philip IV of France had hoped to seize the order's legendary fortune, but when his forces raided Templar strongholds, the treasure was nowhere to be found. Had the knights foreseen their downfall and smuggled it away? Some believe that. In the days leading up to the arrests, Templar ships set sail from the port of La Rochelle, carrying gold, relics, and secret documents to unknown destinations. Scotland is one possibility. At the time, Scotland was in rebellion against England and had little loyalty to the Pope. Some theories suggest that Templar knights found refuge there, possibly influencing the creation of the Freemasons centuries later. Others believe that the treasure was hidden in Portugal, where King Dinis protected former Templars by reorganizing them under a new name, the Order of Christ. Then there's Oak Island, Nova Scotia, where strange tunnels and buried artifacts have fueled speculation that the Templars may have hidden their riches in the New World. But what if their greatest treasure wasn't gold? For centuries, legends have connected the Templars to the Holy Grail. Some believe the knights weren't just warriors and bankers, but guardians of Christianity's most sacred relic, the cup from which Jesus drank at the Last Supper. The Grail is deeply tied to Arthurian legend, and some claim that Templars brought it to England or Scotland, hiding it in Rosslyn Chapel, a mysterious 15th-century church filled with cryptic carvings. Others point to Rennes-le-Château, a small French village where a priest in the 19th century allegedly discovered hidden documents hinting at a Templar connection to ancient secrets, perhaps even the Grail itself. Another relic linked to the Templars is the Shroud of Turin, the cloth believed to bear the image of Christ's crucified body. Some historians suggest that the Templars secretly protected the shroud after the Crusades, keeping it hidden until it resurfaced in the 14th century. The idea stems from accounts of Templars worshipping a mysterious bearded figure during their secret ceremonies. Was this an idol, as their accusers claimed, or was it the face of Christ imprinted on the shroud? Perhaps the most controversial theory is that the Templars reached America long before Columbus. Supporters of this idea point to the Kensington runestone, a slab of stone found in Minnesota, inscribed with what appears to be Norse and medieval European writing, dated 1362. Could this be evidence of a Templar voyage? Another mysterious structure, the Newport Tower in Rhode Island, has been suggested as a possible Templar-built fortification, though mainstream historians argue it was built much later. From hidden treasures to lost relics and secret voyages, the legend of the Knights Templar refuses to fade. Whether these theories hold truth or are mere speculation, one thing is certain: their legacy continues to inspire mystery, intrigue, and the quest for answers. A dimly lit hall lined with ancient banners and symbols. Hooded figures stand in a circle, their hands raised in a solemn oath. The camera shifts to a modern Freemason lodge where a Grandmaster addresses an assembly. The narrator begins. Though the Knights Templar were officially disbanded in the 14th century, their influence never truly disappeared. Legends of their survival have endured for centuries, leading to the belief that their traditions were preserved and passed down through secret societies, most notably the Freemasons. The idea that the Knights Templar and the Freemasons are linked is one of the most enduring and controversial historical theories. While no definitive proof exists, intriguing circumstantial evidence has led many researchers, historians, and conspiracy theorists to believe that the remnants of the Templar Order may have played a role in shaping Freemasonry. This theory hinges on several key elements: the timing of the Templars' dissolution, their possible survival in exile, the emergence of Freemasonry centuries later, and the striking similarities between the two groups in terms of rituals, symbols, and hierarchy. The fall of the Templars and their possible escape. When King Philip IV of France orchestrated the downfall of the Knights Templar in 1307, not all members of the order were arrested. While many were captured, tortured, and executed, some Templars managed to evade persecution. The sudden and coordinated nature of their arrests suggests that a faction of the order had time to flee, possibly taking their wealth, knowledge, and traditions with them. Scotland is often cited as a key refuge for the surviving Templars. At the time, Scotland was engaged in a struggle for independence against England, and Robert the Bruce, the Scottish king, had been excommunicated by the Pope. This meant that Scotland was not fully under papal control, making it one of the few places where the Templars might have found sanctuary. Some theories suggest that Templar knights fought alongside Robert the Bruce at the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, helping secure a crucial victory against the English. While no definitive historical records confirm this, Scottish legends and Masonic lore often make reference to it. The emergence of Freemasonry and Templar influence. Freemasonry as an organized institution did not emerge until the late 16th and early 17th centuries, more than 300 years after the fall of the Templars. Officially, Freemasonry traces its origins to medieval stonemasons' guilds, organizations that trained craftsmen in operative masonry and maintained strict codes of conduct. However, by the time of the 17th and 18th centuries, Freemasonry had evolved into a speculative fraternity, meaning it no longer consisted of actual builders, but instead used the symbolism of architecture and geometry as metaphors for moral and philosophical teachings. Some researchers argue that this transformation from operative to speculative masonry could have been influenced by surviving Templar traditions. Certain Masonic degrees explicitly reference the Templars, particularly in the York Rite and the Scottish Rite, where initiates must pass through Templar-themed rituals to reach higher ranks. These degrees include the Knight Templar degree, which is seen as a direct homage to the medieval order. While Freemasons insist that their organization is independent of the Templars, these references continue to fuel speculation about a hidden historical link. Rituals and symbols, overlapping traditions. The strongest argument for a connection between the Templars and Freemasons lies in their shared use of symbols, hierarchical structures, and initiation rites. The square and compass versus the Templar cross. The Masonic square and compass represent balance and wisdom, while the Templar cross was a symbol of faith and service. Both symbols convey deeper philosophical meanings tied to morality, duty, and enlightenment. Secrecy and oaths. Both organizations were known for their secretive nature and the requirement that members take oaths of loyalty. The Templars swore allegiance to their Grand Master and the Pope, while Masons swear to uphold the principles of the fraternity. Sacred geometry. The Templars were known to have studied architecture and sacred geometry, evident in the design of Gothic cathedrals they helped build. Freemasonry, too, places a strong emphasis on geometric symbolism and mathematical precision. Templar-like hierarchy. The ranks within Freemasonry, particularly in the higher degrees, resemble the structured hierarchy of the Templars, with a Grand Master overseeing the organization, much like the Templars had their own Grand Master. Myth versus reality. The challenges of proving the connection. Despite the compelling similarities, historians caution against assuming a direct link between the two groups. There are major gaps in historical records, and the centuries-long gap between the dissolution of the Templars and the rise of Freemasonry complicates the narrative. Some scholars believe that the connection is more symbolic than literal, that later Freemasons borrowed the mystique and legacy of the Templars to add prestige to their organization. Others argue that while some fugitive Templars may have survived and passed down their knowledge in secret, there is no concrete evidence to suggest an unbroken lineage between the two organizations. Instead, the idea of a Templar-Freemason connection may have been shaped by the Enlightenment-era fascination with secret societies, romanticized legends, and the growing influence of Freemasonry in European politics. The enduring mystery, regardless of whether the Templars directly influenced Freemasonry, the link between them remains a powerful and enduring legend. It has inspired countless books, films, and conspiracy theories, with many still searching for hidden Templar knowledge supposedly preserved within Masonic lodges. The notion that a medieval brotherhood of warrior monks evolved into one of the most enigmatic and influential secret societies in history continues to fascinate those who seek the truth behind these age-old mysteries. Beyond Freemasonry, modern-day Templar orders claim to carry on the spirit of the original Knights. While these groups, such as the Sovereign Military Order of the Temple of Jerusalem, lack direct historical ties to the medieval order, they uphold similar values of chivalry, charity, and Christian service. A montage of Templar ruins, ancient symbols carved into stone, and secretive rituals fading into the modern world. The camera lingers on a weathered Templar seal, half buried in the sand. The narrator begins. The story of the Knights Templar is one of power, betrayal, and mystery. From their rise as warrior monks in the Holy Land to their sudden and brutal downfall, they left behind unanswered questions that continue to spark debate. Did they smuggle their lost treasure to Scotland or Oak Island? Were they the protectors of the Holy Grail or the Shroud of Turin? And did they leave behind knowledge so dangerous that it had to be hidden forever? Even today, their legacy lives on, in the secretive traditions of Freemasonry, in modern-day Templar orders, and in the countless myths that refuse to die. But perhaps the greatest mystery of all is whether their secrets remain undiscovered, waiting to be found. Could the truth still be hidden somewhere today? Let me know what you think in the comments. What's your favorite Templar theory? Do you believe their treasure, relics, or knowledge still exist? If you enjoyed this deep dive into history's greatest mysteries, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. And if you're curious about more secret societies and lost treasures, stay tuned, because history is full of hidden truths waiting to be revealed.